Hello and welcome to the top 4 round of the Japan Spring 3v3 in OP11. You know the matchup by the title and thumbnail of Belo, and PLuffy. It's going to be an exciting match, and we do have deck lists for both of the players from this event. And let me tell you, this PLuffy list is actually pretty interesting with the evolution of EBO2 and OP11. My name is Jake. I'll be doing some unofficial English commentary on this, just my own practice as a caster. And if you want to watch this yourself, maybe not hear me yap, link to the official live stream is going to be in the description below. Highly encourage you go check that out if you haven't already. Let's hear from a word from our sponsor. Whether you love opening packs or going out to buy singles, make sure to log all your cards on your phone through OP Decks. It's the ultimate companion app for all things One Piece trading card game. Whether you're collecting cards, building decks, or looking to level up your game, this app has you covered. Listen, there's a lot of perks within this app on your phone. If you're like me and don't remember what amounts of cards you have, there's a really easy filter system within the app. And honestly, that's just scratching the surface of this app. You can download this app for free on both the App Store and Google Play Store. But you can also get the pro version of this app free for 30 days just by using my code Atrocious. I mean, honestly, it's a win-win. You get a great app that I use to be able to log my cards, right? And you can do it as well. And you're helping support the channel for free. The download link and instructions to redeem your trial are in the description below. Don't miss out now. Check it out. Let me know what you think in the comments. So in the OP11 meta, Belo has run a storm as one of the top decks within this format, right? Especially when you have slow setup decks like green purple Luffy, blue purple Luffy, and other ones alongside of it. Belo shines because it is so fast, right? Not a lot of decks can compete with the amount of bodies that are put out, the power that gets outputted, and is put it in a prime position of this format. We've talked about it on this channel many times of how cheap it is, right? If you're looking for a really good budget deck to run for the next several months, especially in the West now that EBO2 is out, Belo is where you want to be, right? It's like a $15 deck. It's honestly pretty good. Utilizing that leader effect of trashing a card and giving its characters plus 3,000 synergizes really well with not only the aggression tempo of being able to output so much power without investing any Dawn, but utilizing secondary effects on many of its cards with the boost of power. It's going to have to get past PLuffy though, and Purple Luffy from OP05 is one that we've seen many times within these live streams since its release in OP05, right? Sacrificing its own life to be able to ramp Dawn, get higher on the Dawn and faster, especially with purple decks dominating the meta right now with incredible cards like Gum Gum Giant. PLuffy was actually the second highest used leader in all of the different teams, 10 of the 14 teams in this top 16 running this leader. It's trended upward in the last several weeks of the Eastern meta, right? Has been an excellent counter to some of the top decks in the format, and we're going to see how this matchup is going to go here today. Now, Belo's hand starting out here has a couple 2Ks in both of those Sabos, that yellow one over on the far left side. There's also the EBO2 Sabo that just came out in the latest set, as well as Karasu, Kuma, and Emporio Ivankov. The Emporio Ivankov is going to be really important if there's a red Karasu that comes out on the field. And this Luffy leader has an interesting hand that I do want to mention, has one of the key cards that I think have made it successful in the last several weeks in its uptick, and it's 5-cost Poly, right? 5-cost Poly is something that a lot of old PLuffy players may remember that were in their archetypes, but has definitely faded out within the deck since Starter 18's release. Also has Bond Clay, a 9-cost Secret Rare Rush Luffy, a 4-cost Zoro Juro, which is going to be really nice in this one, and a 6-cost Sanji 2K. So the Belo is going first in this one, right? Kind of taking the PLuffy off of the 1 to 4 Dawn curve, and Belo is going to go first. No character to play or anything, no 1-drop Belo searcher, so just going to pass and moving off to the PLuffy on a 2 Dawn turn. If you don't have something like the 1-cost Trafalgar Law, you're going to be in the same position of just passing, and we move now to the 3 Dawn turn. Finding the Belo Betty on the top deck, right? Something that you wish you would have had last turn, but now moving into this one, you have two different options, right? One, playing down that Belo Betty and moving the tempo, right? And also maybe playing the Kuma to spread out the bodies, or going ahead and just playing that 3-cost Karasu blocker. Opting for the Belo Betty at least first finds a couple different interesting cards, including the League Headquarters. The League Headquarters, as you're seeing being moved up to the front as a potential candidate, is really, really nice to help you cycle your deck and help you find different key pieces that you're going to need. So is going to go for that right there. We'll see if they end up swinging 6,000 power with lead instead of playing with Akuma, right? Because as a 1-cost stage, you are going to be able to play that down and have 1 Dawn left over, and immediately just going in and playing that has to discard something trash from hand in order to search the top 3 for a Rev Army type character. Does pitch that promo Sabo right there, so is going to go in, finds a 5-cost Emporio Ivankov, and they are on the odd curve. So being on the odd curve, you are going to go 1, 3, 5, and with that 5, you could go ahead and play that Ivankov to look at the top 3 and maybe find something like that 4-cost Karasu that they were showing on screen. With that 1 Dawn, they are going to go in and swing 6. Really got to be careful about how much life you take, especially on the defensive side, right? Offensively, we'll take Dawn a couple times to help ramp and accelerate our game plan as we 2K out of that attack in the PLuffy. But with Belo Betty being so fast and so aggressive, right, you really got to be careful about how much life you have and how many cards you pitch away. Finding on that top deck a second 9-cost Luffy maybe doesn't really have too much value in going on the leader effect. Maybe wants to conserve life a little bit, so goes ahead, swings 5 with lead, and even though that Karasu does have a play trigger, the total of you and your opponent's life has to be 5 or less in order to play that down, so no trigger on that, just a 1k going to hand. Does, however, use leader effect to ramp a Dawn and then play the 4-cost Zoro Juro. Looking at the top 5 for a purple Straw Hat Crew type card, we see Luffy Taro in that set as well. Looks like maybe fanning towards an Usohachi, right? Would be nice to get a 2k, right? Kind of rebuild the hand a little bit for when they start swinging really heavy. But there's other options in here in the, I think, before it got super faded. There we go, as we're clearing it up. We have a 3-drop Nico Robin in here. Nico Robin is a one of in this deck list and a great card, as well as that 7-cost Sanji. Both provide excellent options, but I do agree with the player. I think maybe the 2k Usohachi is the best option of the 5 right now. Can't grab the Poly, unfortunately. So putting that into hand and 1 Dawn left, probably just passing the turn off at this point. Nothing really to do else with this. I don't think you have a 1-drop Law to play. Yep, and just passes off to that Belo Betty. Belo Betty is now going to draw for turn. Going to be at 5 Dawn, so you could go ahead and play that Emporio Ivankov. If you go ahead and play that Emporio Ivankov, might be able to help you play down another body on the field that could help you out a ton within this match. You still have the stage as well to go ahead and rotate, but it's going to be one of those questions of whether you want to use Ivankov first or go ahead and rotate with the stage. Both search the top 3, and especially if you find the 4-cost Karasu off of stage, you have a less likelihood of being able to play it off the 5-cost Ivankov. So going ahead and playing that Ivankov there, going to start out with that first. Remember that you can find a 5,000 power or less Ivankov in there, but it looks like a 4-cost Karasu has been found, and that is more than likely going to be the option right here. Then it is going to get played down with that on-play effect of minusing 1,000 power the Luffy leader. The Luffy is actually going to be 4k at this point. So now we're going to see the 5,000 power at lead in a 4,000 power leader. A 2k that you just grabbed off of that Usohachi will still get you exactly where you need to be in terms of getting out of the attack, but you do have to think about that Belo Betty if after this leader swing goes ahead and uses leader effect to be able to power up the Belo Betty. So does use that 2K Usohachi that they showed off earlier, and Belo Betty goes ahead and rests the stage. Going to be using that stage, still has to decide what they want to cycle. Going to get rid of the worst card, which is Karasu. I think at this point there's plenty of options in the purple Luffy deck that can rest little chum blockers, and so finding a chum blocker is not something that you necessarily are privy to play down. The 6-cost Koala is really the biggest target, I think, in terms of blockers that you want to get. So does find another 5-drop Ivankov. The 5-drop Ivankov is going to be nice to be able to play it in the next turn. It looks like passes off the turn, does not want to swing with this Belo Betty. Says, okay, I want you to play out either more characters down on the field, then I want you to take another life before you go ahead and do that. The PLuffy, looking like they found a Gum Gum Giant off the top of the deck, starts out by swinging 5 at lead. Remember, the Karasu minus power only happens for the rest of the turn, so Luffy going back up from a 4 to a 5,000 power leader is just going to command a 1K, right? I'd imagine that you'd want to take the Zorojuro swing coming in right here at 6, maybe get a trigger body, and that's exactly what's going to happen after countering out with the Inazuma. Does find another Inazuma. When one goes down, another comes up, and the Polly comes in and deletes the Karasu. Polly is an excellent character, especially within a matchup like this, giving the KO options back to PLuffy that it has been missing for a long time. The Polly, with resting the extra Dawn, 2 of them, is going to be able to KO a 4-cost or less, and so the Polly is really nice on that on-play effect to just be an immediate answer to Karasu, a character that gives so many problems to the different decks that Belo Betty face up against. So it's going to be up to this Belo Betty to maybe find another Karasu, right? As Polly is a Water 7 Galila Company type character. It's not really searchable at all in PLuffy decks, more likely than not if they are playing it. I can tell you that in this list specifically, it is not searchable. So lightning will have to strike twice in a sense. So starts off with the stage, and I do like the stage play first, right? You would be able to get rid of something from the hand and search the top 3. And if you find a 4-cost Karasu, which we do not, unfortunately, but a 2K Koala is found, which is very nice. I was going to say, if you did find a Karasu, you could go ahead and play that 4-cost Ivankov, boost up its power a little bit with maybe leader effect, and play that Karasu from hand. Now at this point, because you're grabbing the Koala, you can go ahead and play another 5-cost Ivankov down on the field, a nice 6,000 power body, to be able to potentially cheat out the Karasu and find it off of the top 3. So that's exactly what's going to happen. Going to be using that Ivankov, looking at the top 3, and we'll see exactly what they find in here. Having found one, there's a second one right there. Definitely a big deal to keep Belo Betty in the driver's seat of this game. Going to probably be slamming that down right here off of this Emporio Ivankov effect to once again make the PLuffy a 4,000 power leader. And so now a 4,000 power leader, going to be up to the Belo Betty to maybe go in and be aggressive at this point, right? Maybe start swinging at life a little bit. Could go ahead and get potentially, if 2 Dawn are attached to lead, 3 life or so, maybe 2, I would think, with the boost up of the leader effect. It's definitely very dangerous, and one of the reasons why Belo Betty has become so good, right? Because decks just can't keep up with the early tempo aggression. But if you do at least pitch a card from hand to power up your different Rev army or characters with trigger, which one do you pitch, right? Do you pitch the Inazuma, even though the Inazuma can potentially have rush? It actually looks like he minus the Zorojuro right there on the field. So maybe thinking about going a little bit more on the board control, because the Zorojuro, if it was minus, it is going to be a 5,000 power character, and with Belo Betty, right, powering up the different characters on the field, the little 1-cost is going to be a 5,000 power character to be able to match Zorojuro in this. So going to be very interesting with The koala that was found is going to go ahead and minus 3,000 for a 4,000 power minus total on the Zorojuro, and now goes ahead and swings a 2,000 power Belo Betty over to the Zoro. And so now this PLuffy really needs to think about at this point, how much does he actually want to counter in order to save this Zorojuro? One of the things that you could do is maybe counter out of the first swing on this Belo Betty to try to redirect another swing at the Zorojuro and one away from lead. But without the power-ups, this Belo Betty and Ivankov swings are just a plain 5 and 6, right? So an easy 1K, 2K to counter out of it. The Karasu stays on the field at this point and is going to be up to the PLuffy to try to deal with it. I don't think PLuffy really has an answer to it at this point. The answer, if they had one, would be the 7 cost Sanji, right? Being able to rest the Karasu and then go ahead and swing into it. But I think for now, it's just going to have to be the Trafalgar Law if you want to go ahead and play into that. I will say, I remember them bottom decking one of the Sanjis earlier in this match, and they are playing 4 copies of them. So 4 copies of the Sanji means that the Trafalgar Law, looking at the top 4, might have an opportunity to be able to find it. But first, starts out with the 5,000 power swing at lead and a quick 1K counter out. Now swings the Polly and a 2K Sabo is used to get out and go to 7,000 power. Maybe he is going to go on the aggression, and they are 9 cost for the Luffy and be able to have rush after drawing another Trafalgar Law, it looks like. And so this 9,000 power rush, especially because you got 2 counter cards out of the Belo Betty's hand, you might have an opportunity to be able to swing at the Ivankov that's rested out there on the field. If you go ahead and swing at that Ivankov that's rested on the field, you have a pretty good chance to knock it out as they're doing, and the knockout is going to be taken on that character. I would have liked to see one of the swings hit the Belo Betty then, potentially, if you were thinking of maybe going for this Ivankov, right, with the 9 cost, but just passes off the turn, leaves 1 open for the Gum Gum Giant, right? Doesn't play that Trafalgar Law yet because you don't want to lose. Belo Betty is so good at just taking so much power and aggression and taking your life so quickly with few cards in hand. I will say they only have a few bits of counter in hand outside of the Gum Gum Giant, so it's going to be interesting to see if they start doing a whole bunch of poke damage to the PLuffy right here, how much they actually get hit with the different characters on the field. So they'll start out with the Revolutionary Army headquarters, pitching the other headquarters. That's a very easy pitch, in my opinion. Not very difficult to think of. The random switching of the screen by accident. I think they accidentally leaked something. What was that? Hold on. I just want to see that real quick. Oh no, this is the premium poster collection. Never mind. But anyways, that was so weird. Grabs a 2K off of the Revolutionary Army headquarters. You love to see that if you're the Belo Betty, right? Stacking a bit of counter in hand and also the potential to power minus, right? We could probably get rid of something like the Polly at least, and maybe even the 9-drop Luffy if we go ahead and use the leader effect alongside the Koala, right? That's only a cost of 2 Dawn for potentially a lot of power minus and being overpowering on the different characters with all of this 9 Dawn that we have available to us on this turn. I believe we're at 9 Dawn right now. The thing about Belo Betty right now that they really need to think about is having 3 life, right? Can you actually get mathed out from the next turn if the leader just goes PLuffy lead, Polly lead, Monkey Day Luffy 9 cost lead, and maybe another 9 cost at you? Can you defend against that? But just starts out by swinging 5,000 power at lead with the Belo Betty in a situation to where they are going to go ahead and try to swing at these characters on the field, right? Just trying to bait out a card out of hand, especially now at this point because you know they're 1 less card in hand. I feel like a lot of times if you're Belo Betty and you're maybe going to focus hard at lead, you swing with the Karasu first, right? You power it up and swing with the Karasu first, just because to get that leader to be a minus 4,000 power. But maybe thinking about doing the power minusing on the Luffy right here. So minus 3,000 power on the Luffy puts it at 7,000 power. I know how to do basic math, right? 10,000 power base minus 3 is 7,000 power. Could be as low as a 6,000 power if leader effect is used and powered up with the Karasu, which would lead to an 8,000 power swing at a 6,000 power character. And so it's just going to, instead of using leader effect, just swing that 8 by using the Dawn right here, conserving the cards in hand at this point. And so now it's going to be an 8,000 power swing at a 4,000 power, or I'm sorry, a 6,000 power Luffy. And one thing that you got to think about if you are the PLuffy right now is what else could come at this 9-drop Luffy, right? How much do I actually want to save this guy? Like I mentioned earlier, it would have to cost you a Gum Giant to be able to get out and save this Luffy on the field. And do you actually want to give that up, right? Because if a leader effect is used, right, and the Dawn is spread every which way, the 1-cost Belo Betty can swing at it, the 2-cost Koala can probably swing at it, and the 5-cost Ivankov would be 9,000 power, so could either swing at that Luffy or the Poly. It's a really tricky situation right now, I think, if you're the PLuffy in terms of what you're actually going to do. And so is going to go ahead and use Gum Giant, draw 2 cards, keep this Luffy alive for now, right? Putting that power above, is going to go ahead and use leader effect, boost up those 3 different characters. And so after drawing a couple of those cards, just has a bunch of 1-drop laws in hand, and now a 9,000 power swing is going to take that knockout, right? There's no conceivable way to be able to keep this Luffy alive at this point with 3 1-costs and you know, what is it? How much power? Of 4,000 power difference, I think it was, or 3,000 power difference. So gets that knockout, trying to do basic math in my head. I majored in touchdowns, did not major in mathematics. Does have a couple more done, puts the rest on the Koala and goes ahead and swings 9,000 power again at the Poly. Says, you know what? You didn't give up on the 3,000 power difference on the secret rare Luffy. I'm going to match that same number on this Poly, clear the board, and just swing a little 5 on the Belo Betty right here to get another card out of your hand. And so the draw is the 4th Trafalgar Law. Definitely something that you don't expect, right? I think all 4 of these laws coming within like the last 5 cards of the deck. Definitely not something that you see often if you're the PLuffy right now. But with a full 10 Dawn turn and many swings coming at you in the next turn, when your leader is more than likely going to be a 4,000 power leader, I think you've got to jam into this Karasu, right? You have to get this Karasu off the field, whether you go in with this 1-drop law and try to find something like the 7-cost Sanji, the 9-cost Luffy, but starts off with the Zoro Juro. So maybe valuing a little bit more the counter in hand in the law. Does find a 2K Usohachi if they want to keep that. Also a couple Zoro Juros. Another interesting card that we see from OP11 in this is an 8-cost Katakuri. So 8-cost Katakuri now being played in PLuffy, right? Just a generically good purple card in this format, at least. So ends up going with the Usohachi to grab the counter in hand. 5 Dawn left to be able to utilize, and puts in the 1-cost law yet again right now to try to just build up the hand. Like I mentioned, tries to replace a 1K with a 2K or maybe a Gum Giant, pitches or picks up a Usohachi again at this point, and maybe playing the final one of the Trafalgar Laws. One of the things that you have to do and think about if you're the PLuffy right now is if you go ahead and swing 8,000 power at the Karasu, right, which is the maximum amount you can do after playing down this 1-cost law. What if they go 2k out of their hand, no cards in hand? Off of this law search does find another Usohachi, which is 3 straight 2Ks to grab. You'll love to see that, but maybe you grab the 9-cost Luffy or the 7-cost Sanji, right? 2 rush cards that you maybe could go in with in the next turn if you're not afraid of dying. I like 7-cost Sanji right now, just simply because you have a decent amount of counter in hand from all of these searches, but values the safe route of saying, you know what, I'm just going to go with the Usohachi right here. And if you jam this all on the Luffy and swing at the Karasu, if they 2K'd out of it or 2K1K'd, that would be trouble, but with only 2 1Ks in hand, is going to go ahead and clean up that Karasu, and now sticks to being a 5,000 power leader for the defensive turn, at least at this point. So 1 Dawn left, plays it for the final law, is going to go ahead and do one more search. What can they find? At least a Sanji 1K, right? Is going to go ahead and grab that. I think that's the 4th one that we've seen, because we bottom decked 2 in the last 2 searches, and I think we bottom decked 1 in the early game, especially with a 9-cost Luffy in there as well. Definitely a tricky spot, but you could potentially push for game in the next turn, having spread out your board so much. Now in the Belo Betty's turn, obviously I think Belo Betty's just going to be jamming face the whole time, right? There is an army of Trafalgar Laws that are out on the field to be able to swing at your bodies after they rest sideways if you do not get game this turn, and goes off with using stage to start out the turn, pitching the Karasu blocker right there, because as I mentioned earlier, and especially since we know a Sanji is in hand, the Karasu blocker not going to get any value off blocking in this matchup. Does find a 4-drop Karasu, so might be something that they grab at this point. You don't have the 4-cost Ivankov in hand anymore to be able to power up and play that Karasu for free, but it might allow you to apply a lot of pressure through the leader effect and put a lot on this Luffy for the late stage of the game. And so immediately going down, playing that Karasu is going to make the PLuffy leader 4,000 power. And now you have 6 Dawn left at this point. So with the 6 Dawn, where are you going to put it? Puts 1 on the Koala and matches with a 4,000 power swing. Really interesting not using leader effect at this point. Maybe just trying to poke out these 2Ks in hand. You actually know 3 of the 4 cards in their hand, right? You know that they have the 2 Usohachis, one from the starter deck and the other one from OP05, right? Those 2 different arts. And then you know that they have the 7-cost Sanji as well. So maybe instead of taking a lot of life, maybe you're just trying to ask to get all of these cards in hand at this point, and maybe won't use leader effect at all. Maybe in the trying to avoid using leader effect, the Belo Betty is conserving that 2K 1K in hand, right? Especially because Inazuma does get that rush with the power up in this one. And so it's interesting, this PLuffy won't be losing in this turn, but can they go in and take the win from Belo Betty in the coming turn after countering out that Sanji 1K? It's been really interesting in this match to see Belo Betty not really use leader effect. I think they've used leader effect 1 time as the Koala goes in and uses a swing for 4,000, 2Ks out of it with what information is known in the OP05 Usohachi. You got 4 Dawn left to use, and attaching to the Belo Betty goes ahead and swings another 4, just matching the leader at this point, and another 2K is going to be able to get out of it with the Usohachi, the one of that we know. We don't know what the other one is, but we know that this one is Usohachi, so that's kind of all the information that we need. The 6,000 power swing and 7,000 power swing with the Ivankov and leader is going to pass off the turn. And so now it's going to really be up to the PLuffy if they just have, you know, these 1-drop Trafalgar Laws and the Zoro Juro, right? they probably need to go for game at this point to be able to survive, or maybe beat up all of these bodies and get them off the field. The bodies, though, is the real problem, because you have to invest Dawn on these Trafalgar Laws to be able to swing at stuff like the Koala and the Emporio Ivankov. So with 2 cards in the Belo Betty's hand, is it just better to go for game at this point? What is the potential counter that they can have? You actually, I don't think, have any information on what's in the Belo Betty's hand at this point, right? Because every time we've used Stage or the 5-cost Ivankov, we've played it immediately on the field afterwards. So goes ahead and swings 8 at the Ivankov, gets a knockout at that point. Now goes ahead and swings the Trafalgar Law at a matching 2 with the Belo Betty, takes a knockout there as well. And Belo Betty now not going to be able to lose in this game, I think, right here. But with a 4-drop Trafalgar Law, just trying to build up the hand yet again with counter power. Maybe trying to find a special card or two, and finds a Gum Gum Giant. That is definitely the definition of a special card that I was talking about right there. Because Gum Gum Giant, you know, if you've been watching the last couple of videos, is just an incredible card in this format. And in the game right now, one of the reasons purple is so strong. Goes ahead and tests the hand once again, swings 3 at the Koala right here. So again, just trying to clear bodies as much as possible at this point. You can imagine that right now, if you're the Belo Betty, right, one of the things that I think could happen at this point is if you let this go and the next Koala go, right, the PLuffy just stops attacking in general, says, you know what, I'm not going to swing at any life after these 2 attacks, but ends up swinging 5. I don't know if I'd swing the 5 right here, because even though it wasn't, if that was a trigger body on the field, right, the trigger body would almost be damning at this point for you. But you do have 2 Gum Gum Giants in hand, so maybe all's not that bad, actually. But we still have plenty to go in this game. The Stage is going to be utilized at the start of this turn to pitch the Koala. It's a brick in hand, does not give you any value. Look at the top cards. Ends up finding a 1-drop Belo Betty, which can be nice, right, as an extra amount of counter. But what do you do right here? You have to play the Inazuma to be able to go in and hit for game, but goes ahead and plays the Belo Betty. Maybe says, you know what, I'll go a little bit more passive in this turn. Finds an Inazuma, maybe trying to say, okay, I'm just going to go a little bit more wide to you as both players hit time. The Belo Betty going to be turn 0 in this overtime segment. Maybe just going to play down double Inazuma to get extra rush characters on the field at this point. And here's the first one on the field, and a second one going to come down on the field as well at this point. Is going to be 2 7,000 power rushes off of the leader effect. And so the way that overtime works, by the way, if you do not know, is the player which is in the middle of the turn is turn 0, and then you go to 3 turns. So this player being turn 0, the next turn, the PLuffy being turn 1, turn 2 on the Belo Betty side, and turn 3. It's a little bit different than our Western rules, but the Belo Betty now, after using leader effect to power up those 3 characters, the Karasu swings 8,000 at a 4,000 power Luffy, right? Karasu, because it's 7,000 power or more, minus his 1,000 power, the Luffy. And so now with 3 Dawn left, you gotta hit 2 more times at this point, with the potential of 2 Gum Gum Giants. So now with the Inazuma, swings 7 at the 4. A Gum Gum Giant would get out of the swing, and so there it goes. Draws the cards right there, and you got the Gum Gum Jet Gatling, and that's probably going to seal this game for the PLuffy. But goes ahead, swings that, takes that life, swings 8,000 power at lead, and a Gum Gum Giant should be able, or Gum Gum Jet Gatling, I'm sorry, as well as the Furnosuke, should get out of that attack, right? Plus 5,000 power to go to 9. And the PLuffy now just needs to hit 2 more times with a 1-card hand. This is easy math for anyone who is trying to get into the game right. You know the possible scenarios on counter, and an 8K swing is going to take out the game, and the PLuffy is going to end up winning that stage show match. Definitely crazy. I feel like Belo was in the driver's seat for a lot of that game and did pretty well, especially playing the Ivankov and Karasu. I know it says winner right here. The Belo wasn't the winner. The whole team was the winner. In this format, you have to win 2 out of 3 as a team, and so that's exactly what they did. The Belo lost, but his other 2 teammates ended up winning. Finding the Karasus off the Emporio Ivankovs were so important to be able to get this Luffy leader to be underpowered, right? But PLuffy doing a good job of conserving resources and conserving life, right? Not doing too many taking life to be able to ramp effect, just controlling the life that he had, even if it meant pitching all the cards in hand, because eventually, as you keep swinging at them and at life, they'll run out of resources, because Belo being a quick glass cannon, and so once they run out of resources, then you go in for the kill. But let's look at some deck lists. So here's the Belo list if you're interested in trying it out. The one thing that I will say is that there is the OP11 Zeus in this list, and also the promo Sabo, which aren't exactly accessible to the Western format yet. These are 2 cards that you can switch relatively easily. Just play some other searchable 2K in a sense that may give you a lot of other power, but for the base of Belo it's pretty cheap in general. The only SR is Koala, which is, I think, less than $1, like, honestly, on TCG Player at this point. But Karasu, as you saw in that game, being one of the more dangerous components of this deck, right? Being able to minus 1,000 power on your opposing leader is so good to be able to swing with a lot of these small bodies that you get a ton of value from in Belo the Kuma, right, Inazuma even, and also potentially Raise Max, right? All with Belo power boost of pitching a card in hand and gaining 3,000 power puts them above 5,000 power or more in Inazuma's case to force you to at least pitch a 2K, right, from your hand to be able to get out of a base 5,000 power swing attack. Belo is a master deck at speeding up the game and elongating the game more and more. A lot of times, like I mentioned, forces Belo to run out of resources. As you saw in that later stage of the game, never really had too many cards in hand after the first turn or 2. I thought it was really interesting how Belo didn't really use the leader effect. I think that's the hardest component of this deck is resource management, right? Because the more that you use your leader effect, the faster you lose your hand size, right? Which is part of your resource. So it definitely takes a little bit of playing and knowledge on when to use exactly what, but if you can figure it out, you're in a pretty good spot. Here's the PLuffy list that I thought was very interesting, right? This is going to be the list that we see out in the finals in tomorrow's YouTube video, so make sure you subscribe if you want to see that. There's the typical cards that we usually see within this archetype, like Zorojuro, the Sanji, the other Sanji, right, as well as Gum Gum Giant, Trafalgar Law, and Bon Clay. Also the Usohachi. Debatably the most expensive card in this deck, actually, I think. Pretty sure. Either that or the 9-cost Luffy. There are some new additions into this archetype in the OP11 format that you may not know about. One being Brook. I know a lot of people have talked about Brook in green-purple Luffy, red-purple Luffy, but can also be slotted in purple Luffy as an excellent option with that when attacking effect. The 8-cost Katakuri, even though you do not have many Big Mom Pirates characters outside of this Katakuri, can restand itself, right? It's like the Odyssey 5-cost Doflamingo blocker in a sense. And you get to re-ramp a Dawn, which can help in a lot of different situations. The Nico Robin is very good, right? Being able to, on that KO, do some digging for another piece of the puzzle that can provide a lot of early game value. Zorojuro is emerged back in this list with a couple copies. I really like Zorojuro, right? Especially in this format with so many different purple decks. I think all of the purple Straw Hat Crew type decks are now playing this card in some capacity, whether that's 4 copies or 2, and especially in a hyper aggressive format, right? Like one that we're seeing with Belo Betty and Zuros running around. Zorojuro can actually put in work, not only being able to combat against a lot of those characters in the early game, but also if you have to take life early, you can at least get value off of his swing other than attacking different small bodies by ramping a Dawn and setting it as active. It can help you lead into turns where you can remove other bodies with Polly, right? Polly is an excellent card that we saw a lot in Purple Luffy back in the OP05 and OP06 days, but now since Starter Deck 18 released and Usohachi, Zorojuro, etc. have taken over the deck, Polly has been phased out, but with KOing a 4-cost character is so good, right? And especially if maybe all you want to do is ramp, you just don't need to KO anything, or maybe there's not anything that you want to KO on the field, you can actually use this on play to just literally ramp a Dawn, right? You can ramp up to 8 Dawn, make sure that next turn you're hitting 10, and it's like ramping without having to use leader effect. One of the interesting things too about this list that I've noticed is there's no Luffy Taro in this list at all, a staple in this deck since its release in Starter Deck 18. It's a card that's like slowly been phased out as we've moved into this OP11 format that I actually find really interesting. I'm really curious if people are going to potentially in the West try out this idea in Purple Luffy decks in the EBO2 format. I think it's something really worth doing, especially because, well, the only card that we don't have in this list is the 8-cost Katakuri. But that's going to be all in this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm sorry that these times of the videos are coming out like really weird. I didn't realize this tournament was happening over the weekend and I planned a trip out of state. And so I'm like trying to catch up now that I'm home. But hopefully you've been enjoying it. Let me know what you think in the comments below and what leader you hope ends up winning in the next finals round. Yeah, finals round. It's going to be the Belo Betty team that we just watched versus the Katakuri team that we watched in the previous video. And I know that they make it into the finals, but the result I'll have to record and let you know as well. Thank you again so much for watching. Check out the link in the description below for the official live stream. That's all I got. I feel like I'm rambling now. Anyways, see ya.